crying out loud. We're
Let me
not
tell you
looking.
something. Had this been a Democrat candidate, they would have been behind bars. This guy, this perpetrator, he would have been charged, and the media would never have shut up about some right winger out there attacking some innocent Democrat. And that's the two-tier justice system we have. That's how really just despicable Merrick Garland is. Thank goodness he is not a Supreme Court justice who would have served for a life term. This is really what we're facing. And also, by the way, the really important point in this, two things. Number one, what about all the rest of the New Yorkers that are my neighbors, everyone around me, who don't have the protections of a federal statute, who are being besieged by crime, petty crime to more serious crime, to shootings, to violent crime, and nothing the police can do about it? And secondly, that night, while Lee was in the police station on this issue, they had to go in, there were two police officers shot and one was killed. And this, as if nothing happens. I mean, these people, this is dangerous. Our police need to be supported. They're obsessed with this defund the police movement because it sounded good coming from people like AOC and other Marxist types who don't think we should have any kind of rule of law. And, when you have a self-governing constitutional republic as we have, the rule of law is essential. It's important that we are able to be safe in a free society and able to speak and exercise all of our rights in the Bill of Rights. So, I mean, this is the kind of, they don't even understand that. They think that everything is about government. They don't understand, which I find interesting. And I love when I go to like high schools, they don't understand that New York State and the original colonies existed before the federal government. We had to go through a lot of deliberation and a lot of time before we decided we wanted a federal government. And the reason we created the federal government was for national security and defense. That was it.
And meanwhile, we have a president who has decided unilaterally that we will not enforce the laws, we will not secure the border, we will permit illegal immigrants, terrorists, and whomever to cross that border with impunity with Mexico. And there just isn't a reaction from the Republican Party. There just isn't a reaction. The American people are furious. And this president has paid an enormous price in the polls. But let's see what he does in November, because he is definitely on the ballot now in a midterm election.
Yeah, there is a reaction from the Republican Party. And I just want to give you a little insight, because I served in the state assembly where it was 108 Democrats to 42 Republicans. So I could see this coming. There was nothing we could do other than to go to the courts. And unfortunately, with the way that the New York State Assembly was run, it was an authoritarian dictatorship. And a lot of those people left the state assembly and other parts of the country as well, went to Congress. And now we have Nancy Pelosi, who's in power. And she doesn't just run the House of Representatives. She abuses power every single day. So we have to go to the courts. We can't even get bills on the floor. So yeah, we're screaming. We're talking about bills. We're introducing bills. We can't get a vote on them. We're trying to go on media. Most of the media is covering January 6th all day. They're not covering the real things that are affecting Americans every day. And yet we have to go to courts and we have to sue in order to get any kind of relief, and especially on the border. Think about all these New Yorkers, police in upstate New York. We've had our own government travel agency that's been taking these illegal immigrants and bringing them to our communities where we're paying for them. Our New York State tax dollars are paying for them, because in New York, unlike a lot of states, the local government still pays 25% of that Medicaid share. And these people are getting benefits that are federal programs passed through the states and down to the local governments. We're paying for this. And so while we have inflation and we have high gas prices, all these things at record levels, we're paying for illegal immigrants. We're paying, for the fact that we have energy illiteracy. We have, we have some of the best opportunities to explore natural gas. The Marcellus and Utica Shale are right in my district, and the Democrats have shut it down. And there is a bill that just passed the state assembly that as of 2024, just less than a year and a half away, if you try to build a structure, a house, a commercial property that attaches, it will be prohibited to attach to a fossil fuel source. Kathy Hochul hasn't signed it into law yet, but if this becomes law, what are we going to do with the vast numbers of New Yorkers in upstate who rely on propane, natural gas, fuel heating oil. We're coming up on winter. I mean, this is going to be a complete disaster for the state, not to mention our economic vitality, the ability of us to prosper, the struggle that our farmers are seeing, our small business owners that drive our economy. I mean, these people have absolutely, I know how you feel, Lou. I feel like, are they doing this on purpose? I mean, no one could be this stupid to do this and be this cruel to New Yorkers who, have put their livelihoods behind their businesses and are now forced to, either close or leave the state.
These Democrats, and I'm not going to sugarcoat it. I have a number of people I've talked with over the course of the past several weeks. They want to be positive. They want to be optimistic, and appropriately so. But I'm not that guy. We are in one hell of a mess in this country. We've got an idiot running the country. We've got an idiot in place to step in if he should falter. We are watching an administration that doesn't have the collective IQ that you would assemble for a kindergarten. It is ridiculous. And the national left-wing media pretends that this is a serious government with serious people doing serious things in the interest of the nation. The hell they are. They're trying to destroy this country. And I watched Kevin McCarthy, and he's walking around like he thinks it's 1980, and that we don't have these people in office. Mitch McConnell and Kevin McCarthy sit on their hands and are mum and simply say, we'll see what happens, instead of trying to make things happen and save this country. They should be telling the Democratic leadership, we're not going to tolerate this. We should enjoin this president from being even near the White House, let alone running the free world.
Well, I have right from the start, I've introduced articles of impeachment, and they have to deal with, number one, the debacle in Afghanistan. To me, as the mother of a Marine, my son is a Marine officer. He's actually in a drilling as a reservist now. He just went to the reserve unit. But what happened in Afghanistan and the way they're handling foreign policy, I'm a member of the Foreign Affairs Committee as well, is absolutely it's derelict in duty what happened. It never should have happened that way. And then on the border, which is a glaring violation of everything that our federal government is supposed to do, especially the executive branch. Now, I know Kevin McCarthy has worked hard on a lot of these issues. I think we could be more aggressive. Mitch McConnell, I guess he's he's a lame duck now. I don't think he's going to run again. But we really need to, this is about fighting every single day. And I worry, just like you do, that Republicans need to not be afraid to really just fight every day. I put out policy positions. I explain every vote in the House that I take in detail, because there's traps all the time set by Nancy Pelosi, and people worried, skittish Republicans, and, I don't want to vote, and have them say that I voted against baby formula, when the real bill was about giving raises to the FDA and expanding our already over-bloated federal bureaucracy. And so that's why I go in detail, because I want to be a clearinghouse as a former newspaper owner and publisher, and also as a lawyer. I want people to say, not go to Congress.gov and try to figure out who voted and what the bill was about. And you can't read the title of a bill to find out what it's about. That's why I go into the nitty gritty. I tell you why I vote yes or no. I tell you what the trap is, what they're trying to do to us. Because if we're going to be self-governing, and this is the real question, Lou, because I love Lincoln. I'm a studier of Lincoln. My son kind of inspired me to do that. He's a real historian. He was a Naval Academy graduate, loves history. I read a lot about Lincoln, and one of the things that Lincoln always said, and I think you've hit the nail on the head where we are in this country. I don't think we've been here since maybe the Civil War. Can we save this republic? Can we be self-governing? Do we have a population that has the courage to be self-governing, or are we going to let this authoritarian government run by these Democrats destroy our country and take over? Because now is the time. We have to govern ourselves. And if we don't, we're going to be just like every subject in the Soviet Union that existed in the past, and everyone now who suffers under communist Chinese oppression. And that's where we're headed right now. We are just, I really worry about it. And I think Lincoln's words are relevant today. Can we save this republic, and can we be self-governing? And I think that's the question of our time.
I agree. And do we have people mature enough and patriotic enough to stand up for this country and our ideals, our laws, and purpose as a nation, and actually say out loud what everyone knows, that the President of the United States is an impaired, imbecilic, uh, just a
He's
pitiful
cognitively
excuse
impaired.
for a president.
Not to mention, he's always been a career politician.
He's a hack.
Never made good decisions. He's always had a gilded path because he's a Democrat running in very democratic Delaware. Then he got chosen by Obama. He got to hide behind Obama and say a bunch of stupid things. And everyone, the Democrats and the Democrat-controlled media has always, just regular Joe. Meanwhile, what's regular Joe been doing? He's been enriching himself and his family, using his son, who has got obviously huge drug problems, to enrich himself. And he's the big guy. They're making money. They're doing everything that everyone hates about what they hear about politicians. People that go to Washington and use their positions to make money, and to use the largesse of the so-called swamp to enrich themselves. I mean, I look at, how do these people make money? Look at, I've made less money, and not to mention the inflation. The little bit that I've been able to save from our business is, it's just, every day I look at my 401k and we're back down to the 201k. And, I have to save privately. I don't have a big government pension or any of those things but I'm driven by my passion for this country and the excitement and the patriotism. And I'm inspired by a lot of actually new immigrants who have come from Venezuela, from Cuba, from China, even from other areas of the world, who say, oh my God, don't go down that road. You people are so lucky you don't realize it. Yet you see these entitled kids in schools, and they don't realize how good they have it and how important it is for us to save and protect this country. It just, I feel like a senior citizen saying that. I sound like my parents, but I feel like it's worse even than when they were young, when they were younger, and when I was a young kid. So
there is no comparison between. I'll speak for myself. There is no comparison for when I was an 18-year-old and where I am today is something somewhat older than 18 years old. The issues are different. The values are different. We have a society at war with itself, and no one should try to sugarcoat it. No one should try to avoid it, obfuscate it. We have people in this country who want to destroy the American way of life. You and I, our families, working men and women in this country and their families, patriots, all, we are the enemies of our federal government. It's that simple. When we talk about the deep state, when we talk about the permanent bureaucracy and the Marxist Dems who run this presidency and this administration, they mean to destroy everything that we hold dear and understand to be the foundation of everything that has been able to, that we've been able to build over the course of this last 250 years. It's that straightforward, I believe. Don't you?
Oh, yeah. I actually was, I don't want to say who I was with, but recently I was at a meeting with some bureaucrats from the federal side, the new administration, who were describing, we're trying to recover from the last 4 years and reinstate. We've underfunded our federal agencies, and we can't get people to get staff because of this America First, which is really America Alone policy. This person kept saying, and I thought, boy, do they really misunderstand America First? And and to say that the principles and the patriotism and the what President Trump brought to this country, being America First, is not about America alone. It's about working with our allies. It's about making sure that we're strong and we're leading the charge, and they're coming along with us for celebrating freedoms, for having democratic principles, for understanding that we are up against this communist threat, which looks different. It's dressed differently now. It's not that obvious from when it was. We could vilify the Soviet Union. But think about it. What are we doing now to counter China? We're all in bed with China. Our businesses are doing business there. We're very involved without really realizing it. So when we faced the Soviet Union, Ronald Reagan very carefully, they were the enemy. And by the way, even after World War II, we created the Department of Defense, and we created the CIA and these agencies to make sure that we were countering our enemies. We're not doing that now. We're like working with our enemies and allowing them into our institutions to steal our intellectual property from our businesses, whether it's through the colleges and these Confucius institutes. We're allowing Communist Party China to buy up property across this country, to invade our country, and we're not really doing much about it because well, that's money that somebody's making. And that's where what I thought was so important about President Trump. He was the first president to really identify that threat, and I think it's somewhat analogous to what President Reagan did to counter the Soviet Union. Only this problem is even worse. It's even more complicated. They have a tremendous economic strength. Their tentacles are everywhere, all over the world. And they're moving into Africa, to Europe, and to places that we've ignored. So I don't think President Trump at all, his America First policy was America alone. It was America leading, and America leading the world, because we are the reliable country and always have been to lead and not to do the things that the Democrats have accused us of doing, nation building and all those things. And I think Trump really brought us away from even some Republicans who kind of engaged down that road before.
One of the things that occurred when he started talking about America first, when President Trump, he was mocked initially by the Washington Post and the New York Times and the left-wing outlets. They wanted to make an analog back to the isolationists of the 1930s, which is specious nonsense and more lies from the left. America First is as straightforward as it gets, and it is an organizing principle as well as a call to action. It means America First in every policy and every decision by the executive, by those who serve on our Congress and our Senate, to put America first. And my question to the left throughout the Trump presidency was, if it's not America first, who would you like to put first?
Well, it was the apology tour, the apology for who we are and what we stand for, and that's what was so inspiring about President Trump. Whether people like him or not, I know a lot of people didn't personally like maybe some of his attributes, but they loved what he stood for, and they loved his strength and his courage, and we just need to build on those ideas. But look at President Trump was not an isolationist. I really find it very disturbing when I hear people who claim to be Republicans or on the right who immediately say we have to be isolationists. It's like Pat Buchanan. I would say President Trump has been described as obviously America first, very much peace through strength like Reagan, but a bit Jacksonian, not getting into to unnecessary disputes and international wars. But he acts decisively. Dropped the mother of all bombs in Afghanistan against Syria and Assad, took out al-Baghdadi, took out Soleimani, held the Iranians accountable, held the Chinese accountable, understood that we had this terrible Iranian deal. So he was engaged definitely in the world and empowering countries around the world. I remember his wonderful relationship with Shinzo Abe. I mean, that was amazing in Japan. Sadly, he was assassinated. Another tragedy in our world now. And just his relationships. I mean, when he went to Poland, they had this massive crowd because the Polish people recognized someone who was strong and cared about freedom and was going to actually be a true ally to the Polish people who were rebuilding their economy and finally seeing some prosperity after all their years of occupation and struggles during the European wars.
And the Poles, along with, I would say, the UK, principally those two countries are the most aligned with the United States in terms of values and the future they seek. I have great respect for the Polish people, for the UK. They've gone through some difficult times and have lost their way throughout the last 30 years after Margaret Thatcher. But I have to say, Europe right now is filled with the same feeble-minded charlatans that we see in the Democratic Party here.
Yeah, it's very similar. You're right about that. I did a meeting. It was an exchange. Unfortunately, it was on Zoom earlier this year with the members of the German Bundestag, which is their parliament. And it was a bipartisan. It was also it was members of Congress from both parties. And I found that they were obsessed with climate change. This is before the invasion of Ukraine, by the way. They were obsessed with climate change and eliminating any kind of fossil fuels and any kind of reasonable, prediction of where we need to be and how we need to plan for where we're going to be in terms of energy. And the failure to understand that energy is the key to prosperity. And, they were all in on shutting down all of their own natural gas and their own capacities and relying on Russia and relying on other countries. And yet, what do you know? It was weeks later that they were invaded by Putin, and Putin invaded Ukrainians and put us in this horrible situation we're in, where we're seeing the problems with providing food to the world and the problems with the natural gas issue. But let me tell you something: Putin's making a ton of money now because of the Chinese and others. So right now we have just this feckless administration has done nothing but project weakness and empower people like Putin and Xi Jinping.
Exactly. And what could this administration really project other than weakness? They're weak-minded. They have weak spirits. My God, isn't it time for Europe to send its soldiers to the eastern flank if they want to protect against Russia and the evil of Vladimir Putin? Isn't it up to them to pay their way and to pay for their own defense? What kind of mindless idiot doesn't read enough history to understand what we have become? And we have leaders who are squandering not only our treasure, but our legacy as a nation of exceptionalists who prize exceptional conduct and achievement. And these fools, imagine a 50-year-long politician, impaired intellectually, cognitively, leading the country and the free world to hell, because that's exactly what's going to happen if he continues to make decisions in foreign policy. He is provoking Vladimir Putin. He is right now staring into the teeth of the communist Chinese of China. It is the CCP and Xi Jinping are now aligned with Russia. It is not merely a strategic partnership. It is a military alliance, and it creates great complications for the United States and the threat it poses to us and our security. And we don't have a single, as far as I know, a single element of the military now working to make certain that we can contend and win with two fronts, one with the Chinese and the other with the Russians, because that is what we face precisely.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, these people are paralyzed by climate change and paralyzed by this, this fake threat of some kind of white supremacy, that these social issues, these cultural issues, which, that Putin and Xi Jinping have to be laughing at us. And we have this feckless leadership. But think about it. Who's really running the show? It's not Joe Biden. There is a shadow government behind him of probably these young people who have gone to these Ivy League schools, and they believe in climate change, and at least climate change to the point of where this is the existential threat. We can't have a smart, all of the above policy on energy, which is going to produce prosperity. We have elitism, pushing their beliefs without science on poorer countries and making them even more impoverished and dependent, and pushing them into the hands of China and Russia. So yeah, who is it? Do you really think that Joe Biden is making these decisions? I don't.
I do believe that Barack Obama has a great influence over this administration, to say the very least. I believe that many of the signatories on the 51 suspects, as I call them, they're the 51 former intelligence officials who lied to the American people in the days leading up to the election of 2020, that gave Joe Biden a shield against the charges of family corruption, his own corruption, and that of his son Hunter. They knew what it was. They knew that this was a 4-year effort by the Democrats, by Hillary Clinton and her campaign in 2016 to smear President Trump. And they came back and lied so that they could support and put in office Joe Biden. They changed history, and they did so illegally, immorally, and to the everlasting dismay of Americans who are contending with the consequences of the policy decisions this president has made in a year and a half. It's almost, I don't know about you, Congressman, I don't know about you, but I can't believe how much damage, how much devastation he has caused in only 18 months in office.
Look, I thought he was going to destroy the country in 4 years. I think he was pretty much well on his way to destruction within the first year. And I want to tell you something about those former intelligence officers. I called for immediately when that the debacle of the Hunter Biden laptop was revealed and their attempts to call it Russian disinformation. I called for them to all lose their security clearance or any kind of benefit they're receiving in terms of their access to this type of information. They should all be shut down, and that should have happened long ago. And I'm sure they're all enjoying their top secret security clearance even today.
Oh, absolutely.
Or they're CNN commentators.
Or NBC commentators.
Or MSNBC, yeah.
It's who ever heard of, talking with a terrific lawyer the other day, he said, whoever heard of a CIA director suddenly being put on television with a regular appearance to assess what is happening in the world, that there are contractual impediments for that. In other words, it's banned. It shouldn't even be happening. It's against the law.
It should be considered an unethical. It should be unethical. When you take an oath of office to hold confidences, much like the Secret Service and other groups, how can you go out? You know that kind of confidence is being revealed, and yet that information isn't available for us to see if classified and other top secret clearances and rules and information is being violated. How do we prove that? Because we have a deep state. We have this, corrupt CIA, corrupt FBI, corrupt Department of Justice under Merrick Garland. No one's going to call these people out. I cannot believe John Brennan is going to be, we have to rely on our honor that he's not violating some oath that he has by publicly being on these shows.
Why is it that Congress has never gone after these people as the oversight committees in Congress and the Senate? Why have they not gone after these people who are violating their obligations under the contracts for our secret agencies like the CIA, the NSA? Why is it?
Well, we can think about it. So we're in the minority. We cannot do anything other than get 5 minutes and then yield time back to our other men. We can bring these. We can write letters.
No, I wasn't speaking of the minority. I'm talking about why is it not in the interest of any American, irrespective of party, to stop this and to be certain it never happens again?
It's their team. This is all about them. They control the government. This is like a communist regime. It's about them. They're protecting themselves. They spend billions and billions of dollars to pad themselves with and protect themselves with this executive state that provides all kinds of wonderful benefits and security and protection to them. And that's what's happening. I mean, that's why, the thing with Trump that I think is so important that they had to get rid of him. All these characters had to get rid of him because he got so close to the core of what's really going on in our government that they had to get rid of him. And I think, that's my belief. And that's why you see this reaction. You see this ridiculous J6 committee. Every time they think that Trump might be making an announcement, they're going to roll out another committee and roll out some more tape, that Liz Cheney, the arbiter of our constitutional principles, she's ridiculous. Is just, she's in late stage Trump derangement syndrome, which I call self-destruction. It's unfortunate, she's just not going to waver on her obsession with undermining our constitutional principles by putting on a show trial. What could be more communist and authoritarian and Soviet style than putting on a show trial where you're selecting what gets to be heard, where you have a predetermined outcome, and you have witnesses that are on there that are coached into what they're going to say. And you also don't allow any cross-examination. You don't allow any of the standard tools of evidence to apply. Now they claim, we don't have to do that. It's not a court trial, but it's the court of public opinion. You're using our resources. You're using the taxpayer resources to present something. We in this country want to see fairness. We can sense when it's not fair. And I think that's why so many people don't care about this. I talk to
Yeah.
people, even some Democrats that are reasonable and a lot of independents, most Republicans see this and say, wow, this isn't right. Why are we doing this? I want to kind of see the other side. I actually want to know what happened on January 6th. Why did President Trump call for more National Guard to come and protect us, and why weren't they there? I mean, there's a lot of questions that aren't being answered by this committee because they have a predetermined outcome. They're trying to create a scenario where they can find President Trump criminally liable for something, anything, to prevent him from being able to run for office again. And what a mission that is. That completely undermines everything that our Bill of Rights stands for.
Yeah, it's and the national corporatist media. I'm telling you, corporate America, in my opinion, a special place in hell is being reserved for every one of those woke CEOs who have permitted what is taking place, who are part of the Wall Street cabal that is shipping American investor capital to the CCP right now, to China, trying to support a failing housing industry, construction industry, and the development industry in China. They are in difficult is probably too light a word. They are on the verge of crisis and possible, in my opinion, a possible meltdown.
Look, I love the opportunity to have free markets, but these are profiteers. These markets aren't fair. China manipulates its currency. They steal our intellectual property. They have a mission, and their mission is to be the world power, to dominate us economically, militarily, which they're doing. They're successfully moving in that direction. And we're naive about it because we have people in Wall Street and other areas that are just saying, hey, you know what? I'm making a ton of money. Who cares if they come in and buy up all kinds of property around the United States? And we need to pay attention. It's not just, the Council on Foreign Investment and all these other groups. We really need to see how insidious their intervention is in all kinds of businesses and land and deals, and not just in the United States, but surrounding us in South America, Central America, Africa, Europe. They're moving into even the Balkan region, after the war in Yugoslavia. I used to live in Yugoslavia. I worked for the Yugoslav consulate during the Olympics in 1984. And I know that what's happened to those countries, they're very desperate. They need help. They're economically weak. The European Union is difficult and clumsy to deal with, especially you hear the reason we had Brexit was because the British people saw that they were losing their identity, they were losing their ability to control their own country. It's simple. I was talking to a member of Parliament on a recent trip over there, and he was saying this is why we have Brexit is because say I wanted to enact a law in my own district in Parliament, as a member of Parliament. I'd have to wait for the EU to weigh in. It could take years. It could take, maybe several months just to get a resolution on something that was a local issue. And this is actually this is why I worry so much about where we're going with this country. And that's why we have Brexit, and they're fighting it. And certainly, the status quo doesn't want Brexit, but the people have shown they do. They voted for it and they want it. They want to make it work.
And I believe they will. Despite the long odds, 15 key U.S. states in which Chinese citizens are buying $6 billion of property after being banned by other nations for doing exactly the same thing and driving prices higher for property. Governor DeSantis has acted. We are seeing some reaction. Why are we tolerating this, and why isn't this a bigger front of mind issue in this country?
That's great.
Chinese, it's just insane what we are permitting in this country.
No, it is. And I love Governor Ron DeSantis. I served with him in my first term in the House, and he was tremendous. I loved working on him. Speaking of dealing with weak attorneys general, and at the time, this was all this Russia collusion hoax was going on, and Ron and a few of us others got together, and it was we spearheaded this article we sent to the Attorney General. It was actually then Attorney General Sessions, saying that here are the facts. These are the laws, the federal statutes that we think have been broken. Please go prosecute these people. And it was James Comey, Lisa Page, Peter Strzok, uh, the entire Obama, Loretta Lynch, the whole crew of them, Hillary Clinton, and nothing happened. And now I love that Governor DeSantis is so forthright. He's aggressive, and I put in a number of bills to counter China. And unfortunately, I'm struggling to get these, and some of them are bipartisan, but to get them to the floor for a vote and get them enacted is really a struggle. But I've had some good partners in the Senate are working with me, Senator Hawley, Senator Rubio, Senator Tom Cotton are working with me on a lot of these issues to counter China. They've been very strong on them. But we've got to get these passed somehow. But, we're not going to get it through the shadow government down at the White House. I mean, this is the problem.
It's why it's critically important the Republicans win. I frankly am very concerned about the state of our electoral system. I fear that too many states are going to have failed to reform their election systems, and that more cheating, another rigged election in various states could turn what should be a wave election into a surprise result. I pray not, but that I would like to close with getting your sense of how likely another rigged election like 2020 are we likely to have.
Well, I've been fighting this after my ridiculous election where I had 100 days in virtual court fighting for every vote and ended up winning by only 109 votes because of the irregularities in New York, the unconstitutional laws placed based on the so-called pandemic emergency and pandemic election by Governor Cuomo. And we were able to pull it out, but it took 100 days of counting and staring into the sleazy vote trafficking lawyer, Mark Elias, who represented President Biden, and he represents Democrats, and he sues counties and jurisdictions all over the country, almost very much in a frivolous way. He's been censored. He's had ethics charges against him, but he's not looking for quality. He's looking for quantity. He's just suing. And, you win 5%, you win, that could decide an election. The entire election of 2020, our presidential election, was decided by 42,000 votes. And that's because Mark Zuckerberg gave over $400 million and primed the pump, used vote harvesting, which was legal in many areas, and went into Democrat core areas and got the vote out, didn't have any regard for the right to privately vote. That's a critical aspect of our voting. It's the reason we have fairly elaborate laws in place, is because we need to protect our right to vote and our private right to vote. So what we've noted, I put a bill in, it was called the End Zuckerbucks Act. We put it in the federal government. It was to end this 501c3, basically run around the laws. So they'd run these. Mark Zuckerberg put his money through, and 92% of that money went to Democrat jurisdictions to prime the pump to get the Democrats to the polls to make Joe Biden the winner. And we came out with this End Zuckerbucks Act, and it was tremendous. Ron DeSantis, governor of Florida, not only did he pass a bill very similar, he also criminalized illegal vote harvesting and voter election fraud, which is great. And 21 other states have also done this. But my concern is this: Zuckerberg's not weighing in now, but guess who has weighed in? As you would say, the incompetent in the White House, Joe Biden, has done an executive order. It's his executive order number 14019. And what he's doing is similar to what Acorn did. Remember Acorn in the day of cheating? So what he's done is created this and empowered federal agencies like the Housing and Urban Development Agency, the Small Business Administration, and all agencies to become voter registration sites and vote pickup sites. So meaning we're going to go into these areas where you're going to find probably very high concentration of Democrats, and these bureaucrats are going to encourage and prime the pump again using our tax dollars coming from agencies, and it could be billions of dollars. It's definitely going to be more than what Zuckerberg put in the private way, run through the IRS rules. But this is going to be our money, and this is how they're going to do it. They already know the red wave is coming to shore, and they're going to make sure that they win on process because they don't win on policy. And they're going to use this executive order to allow all of these areas to these people to generate votes out of these zones. Particularly HUD is worrisome. But this is the problem. We have boards of elections. It's local. It's a local control issue. We have them because they're experts. We train them. We give them the resources to make sure one citizen, one vote, the vote is private, and that we have secure elections that people can rely on. When people don't feel confident about elections, they don't want to vote and they don't feel comfortable. And Stacey Abrams has been proven wrong. One of the most important aspects is they have a photo ID. 85% of people across all demographics now support voter ID, and miraculously now, suddenly, Stacey Abrams now supports voter ID. But that is one of the best ways that we can secure elections and make sure that it's one citizen, one vote. And I say citizen because in the city of New York, they now allow people who are non-citizens to vote. We're suing them. We hope to win that. But this is what we're up against every single day. The fight never ends. And the Democrats never quit. And that's why the Republicans can't quit. So all I can say to everyone, be positive, be a warrior, get out there and be a patriot. Listen to Lou Dobbs. He's a fighter. He is, you're just laying it bare. And I think people need to see this. We need to know that our self-governance is at stake, and we've got to get in there and fight the fight, or we're gonna see this disaster occur again.
Terrific. I couldn't agree with you more, and I thank you for putting it straightforwardly, because this audience, they're used to truth. They're not only strong enough for the truth, they demand the truth. And Representative Tenney, I just thank you so much. You are a representative of great courage and intelligence and passion, and we are deeply in your debt. We thank you for being with us. We're going to give you the last word here on the Great America Show.
Well, thank you so much. And I'm grateful to you for continuing to be so bold and so courageous and laying it on the line, because we need you to educate the public and encourage and inspire people to be bold, to be positive about this. Look, we are in harm's way, but we can't quit. We've got to keep fighting, and we've got to be patriots. We've got to stand up for our country and our values. And we know that we have people like you that have our back. Especially makes me feel great knowing you and knowing that you have this great economic knowledge. You know, you're brilliant in all these issues, and now you're fighting the fight in the trenches, and that's where we need people. Never be afraid to fight the fight. You know, trust in people like Lou Dobbs, who are digging up the truth and making sure we have the facts. And that's what I do. That's why I explain every vote that I take in the House of Representatives in detail, so people know. You can go to Claudia Tenney on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. I'm also at tenney.house.gov.